everybody, welcome back to Screenstars and welcome to another PlayStation review. Today's review is for a game called House Builder, not to be mistaken with the similarly titled House Flipper, a game that I've covered quite extensively on the channel in the past. Now, I noticed this just in the store, brand new yesterday on the PlayStation Store, and it immediately took my attention because, as you know guys, if you follow my content, you know that I enjoy chilled out experiences these days with games that can be really relaxing to play. Now, as I mentioned, I have covered House Flipper on this channel, and I do find that game to be really satisfying and quite a lot of fun to play. But it's not a game for everybody, and that is very similar to what I will be saying about this game. This game is definitely not for everybody. It is, as the title suggests, it's a house building simulation, but not necessarily in the way you might imagine. I thought it was going to be potentially very similar to House Flipper, but in actual fact it isn't, not really anyway. This game essentially focuses on you as a builder, and you essentially are traveling all around the world building houses in different parts of the world. You will start off building an igloo in Alaska, at least I think it's Alaska, it could be somewhere else. Then you'll be building like a mud hut in Africa. You'll be building like a log cabin, which I suspect is in America. Japanese huts, and so on and so forth. So the building projects kind of get bigger and more complex as they go on, and they'll take longer to build. For example, the first one, the igloo, the introduction to the game, I think from memory anyway, because it tells you when you've completed the project how long it took you to complete. I think it took me about 34 minutes to complete the igloo, and then a little bit longer, I think it was about an hour to complete the mud hut, and then the log cabin. You get the idea. It takes a little bit longer to complete each project, to complete each house. And each house kind of follows a very similar pattern. All of the resources you need to build that house is at your location. For example, the igloo, obviously, is surrounded by ice. So you need to get your ice blocks built to kind of build up your igloo. And that's essentially all you really needed for that build. And then when it gets to the mud hut, you've got to build your foundations. You're going to have to chop a few trees down. Then you're going to have to make your bricks out of like mud and clay. So it goes through the whole processes of what you need to do to get those resources, and some of them are really quite creative. Like I say, you've got to create bricks from mud by mixing mud and water together, and then shaping them into your bricks. And it's pretty good actually. And one thing I would say is that it is a very educational video game. Now, I'm not one of these, generally speaking, that harps on about how educational games need to be and all that kind of stuff, really. Most games aren't educational, and they're not meant to be educational. But I have to say, if you guys out there are looking for an educational game, if this is a subject matter that interests you, or you've got a family member or a youngster in the family that's interested in building and all this kind of stuff, and how different builds are made around the world, or how they were made around the world in years gone by, this in actual fact would be quite interesting for them to learn. Now obviously they've taken liberties in regards to some of the mechanics of how you make these materials, but the basic premise is the same as to how they would be made, and it is really quite fascinating, I'm not gonna lie. But you know, if it was just about being educational, you know, this game wouldn't necessarily hit it for everybody, and certainly not me. But I do think it is a point worth mentioning. I do think they have taken some effort here to try and make the builds as authentic as they can be. But also, they've made a lot of effort to kind of make the gameplay mechanic really quite addictive as well. Because it is, you just get really drawn into this game. In regards to the gameplay mechanic, you're just kind of like, okay, just one more You know, you'll kind of build the foundations. You'll be like, okay, I'll play it for a bit longer. I'll do the walls next, and then you do the walls. You can, oh, I really want to get the roof done next, and then you get really drawn into the build, and 3 hours later you find yourself still playing it. It's one of those sort of games. So I do think the gameplay loop here is amazingly addictive. There is like a skill tree, but it's a bit of a silly skill tree, really. The skills that you level up on are only really relevant to the build that you're on. For example, you'll get a skill point sort of thing, and it may make it so that when you're cutting down a tree, rather than just cut one tree down, it will allow you to cut 3 down at once almost. So rather than cutting just one down, you'll have 3 amazingly appear next to each other, and they'll all be fully have the bark shaven off them, all that kind of stuff. Or with the mud hut one, one of the skills will be that it will generate, rather than just 1 or 2 bricks, it'll be like 20 bricks sort of thing. So it makes things easier. So it's not, because otherwise you literally would be there all day building some of these things. So the skills are there to make the build a little bit easier to put up with, really. But the skills that you get on one level won't transfer to the next build. So you've got to kind of get new skills for that build. Now, once you've completed the build, there's a couple of things that you can do with that build. You can buy some stuff. There's like an in-game store, not with real money or anything like that, just with money that you earn in the game. You can buy furniture for your house and things like that, and then once you leave there, you can sell the house. It does seem a little bit of a pointless gameplay mechanic, because there's nobody like House Flipper. If you've played that game, there's people like bidding on your house and this kind of stuff. In this, there's none of that, really. It seems like a bit of a token gesture, really. This game's mechanic really is all about moving on to the next build, and getting really involved in that next build sort of thing. Anything else is not really relevant here to this game. But it's a nice little addictive game, this. I'm not going to lie. It's just what the doctor ordered for me, because I've been a little bit poorly with COVID lately. So this is a perfect game to chill out to. Really addictive gameplay mechanic. And I've been having quite a lot of fun with this game. People out there that are really into exciting games, this isn't for you. If you like simulation type games, if you like House Flipper and games like that, and games that I've covered on this channel, the sort of games that I've covered before, this is something that may well certainly interest you. It is, how much did I pay for it? I think it was $11.99, something like that, in the UK, on the PlayStation Store, which I thought was actually a fairly reasonable price for what it is. You will certainly dump a lot of hours into this game if you do enjoy the gameplay mechanic, for sure. The game is pretty enough to look at. I don't think there's anything majorly wrong with the visuals or anything. Yes, it's nothing special, but it certainly does the job. There's this nice little soundtrack that plays alongside each build that you're on, and what I mean by that is, when you're like building in South Africa, there's like almost like a South African theme playing along. When you're in the Japanese hut, there's like this Japanese music playing along. It's the soundtrack is relevant to the build that you're doing, if that makes sense. But it's also one of them games that you can just put your Spotify list on and just listen to that as you're playing. You don't really need to listen to the music on this game at all. So if you're looking for a nice chilled out experience, this is certainly worth considering. It's nothing special. The price point's okay. And I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10, because it is a fairly addictive gameplay loop, and I do think it's a fairly satisfying game to play. So check this one out, guys, if you get the opportunity. And of course, I will be back with plenty more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.